if you don't have a strong infrastructure, like you don't have Wi-Fi endpoints everywhere that's hooked up to the big World Wide Web, instead you just have a bunch of people walking around with these kind of like wireless devices. What you can do is you can set up a mesh network where somebody can access or enter into the mesh network. They send some packets across the mesh network by talking to the nearest person who is also in the mesh network, who will then forward it onto their nearest person until it reaches the desired device on the network. So you basically make this big blobby network thing. And there's a bunch of different ways to make this happen. Obviously, a bunch of different protocols that people have developed. We're looking for a way to, or like a underlying transport to carry those protocols. Ad hoc Wi-Fi is something that would be well suited for this. However, it is very poorly supported. There's somebody trying to implement it on FirefoxOS right now. And I do notice lots of comments about the WPA supplicant, which does like the heavy lifting for us, just being very just badly behaved because ad hoc Wi-Fi isn't very well supported. Wi-Fi Direct, though, is very supported, but it's not really intended for mesh networks. However, I did read the spec, or the public spec, which isn't the full spec. It's kind of proprietary. But it will certainly work for building a mesh network. So I actually was able to use our Wi-Fi Direct implementation to get two phones that talk to each other. But again, Windows TTL took priority and never really got too far with that. So,
and you just can walk around and be sort of loosely connected with anybody that also has the same setting. So if I just put it in front of the camera, maybe like that thing right in the middle. Yeah. I don't know if you guys can actually see. Yes, awesome. All right, so like we click on settings, and there's just this one setting that says like mesh. It's like one switch, and then you're just connected to other people. So there are some interesting implications of that, and it means that like other people who have done the same thing are just instantly connected to one another. So Alan has 3 Flame devices here, and we were just going to attempt to show you the simplest possible thing that we could do, which is just ping each other. So it's going to be a super boring demo of like some text on a screen, but it's interesting to anybody who understands what a ping is. So do you want to try it?
I think it's also worth explaining, Bob, that nice one, Brett. It's also worth explaining that this is not about connecting phones over existing networks. This is about the phones actually establishing the networks with each other. And so, like, this is not, like, there's no Wi-Fi, no network around aside from the devices themselves. Which, if you're in a place that's going through civil unrest, civil war, etc., and the government has decided to shut off all networks and internet access, that means like there's no way to communicate. But in theory, something like this, especially if it like expands to other nodes, like
what's the range on this kind of thing?
My bet is it uses the Wi-Fi radios, and so it would be device dependent on antenna and power, but probably like dozens.
It's more like kernel drivers that are the problem. Like most of the stuff works completely fine, and it's just a problem wherever there's like a slightly different version of Linux involved. So right now we're just using like a specific version of FirefoxOS on a specific device, but you can connect like a Nexus 4 to a Flame pretty easily right now. Probably not to Rocco, but yeah. Okay, so does everyone see a shell? Okay, awesome. So so can you explain exactly what we're looking at?
Sure. So can you guys hear me all right? Okay. So what these phones are doing is they're connected directly to each other peer-to-peer using Wi-Fi. So they're not connected to the internal office Wi-Fi. And that's useful because if you're standing in a subway or if you're at a rally or something, you don't have internet access, you can still connect your devices together. Nobody has to act as a hotspot. the devices are just connected in a peer-to-peer way. So this opens up possibilities for applications that can function on LANs, but without the internet. So chat applications, things like games, file sharing, contact sharing, that kind of stuff. So yeah, the devices are connected together now, and so the ping is just the devices responding on the ad hoc network. So it's pretty basic, but it's kind of cool, and then we'll build some other stuff on top of it.
So the next thing that I think Alan's going to try to build is just like a demo that actually uses the UDP layer on top of this stuff. So because mesh networking is actually just like a very basic part of this, it's really just like a special ad hoc connection thing between your phones. You get the entire web stack for free on top of it. So WebRTC probably works, but everything that's more simple than that will just kind of work. And yeah, yesterday we tried an interesting experiment of just like walking away from one machine by like taking a phone and just running away with it to see how far away you could make this network actually span. And you can get pretty far. So like a mesh network could really mean like a building, but that's TBD, right?
Do you guys have any plans for anything at MozFest with this?
Yeah, so my plan is to bring this stuff to MozFest. There's not a whole lot in terms of nice APIs for writing apps right now. It's basically just TCP socket, UDP socket, and whatever else happens to work. But there's a nice opportunity to focus on offline apps, and specifically offline apps that have access to a network but not to the internet. So collaborative stuff. Maybe we can get some app maker stuff going by then. It depends how difficult it is and what other problems we run into.
I don't know if Andrew Zielinski's on this call, but they've been talking about specifically installing apps that Mobile App Maker makes without network, and so trying to do it over Bluetooth. This would be a really interesting use case for that as well.
Yeah, it is. I'm here. Yeah, I'm super excited about this. I'd love to talk more about it, in particular as it relates to some of that import-export API stuff that the FirefoxOS team is working on. There's a pretty cool demo for how to share apps over NFC, and it might even be cool to see if that could be adapted to something like this. Be rad. This is awesome.
Yeah, so at this point, we basically have a LAN. Anything that works over a local area network will work here also.
Yep.
Questions about DNS resolution and stuff, but
Sorry.
Alan, do you expose DOM, like DOM APIs, or what's happening here?
Okay, so it's only networking stuff. So on FirefoxOS, you get a network connection, and then whatever you choose to do on top of that. So some DOM APIs will, like XHR and WebRTC, will use the network stack. So insofar as those can work without an internet connection, they'll work.
There's an interesting opportunity to try to expose simple things upward as well. So if you have like a table with the devices that you're connected to in JavaScript land, then you can build things like overlay routing networks and stuff, or simple ways to communicate with other people who are like flitting in and out of existence on your phone. And so instead of building them into the OS layer, we can just write like simple JavaScript libraries to do all of this stuff, which would be really cool.
But sorry, I'm being dense here. So does the content script have any knowledge of this, or is this a transparent thing that's happening purely at the network layer and you are unaware of it in your web app?
It's transparent. It behaves like Wi-Fi. So the phone knows it has an IP address, and it will look to the application like you have a network connection, but not an internet connection. So if you try to go to like google.ca, that won't work. But you
just have to have address awareness at some layer.
You have to have address awareness. What I'd like to do at some point fairly soon is get rid of addresses at the content layer and work in contacts, so you can see who's around you. Because I think that's a lot more useful than pinging someone's IP address.
Very cool.
Great, thanks a lot, guys. That's super neat. Yeah, is there a IRC channel, or like what's the best way to get involved?
Yeah, so there's #mesh on irc.mozilla.org. Jump in there. Feel free to ask or propose stuff. It's pretty quiet right now, so it could use more enthusiasm.
Can I just throw out the idea that, sorry, I'm face muted right now. This is Aki. My camera's broken. If you're putting contacts or putting who's nearby, that could present security issues, especially if you're thinking about using this in places of unrest.
Oh yeah, so there is currently no security. In order to get this to work, it's using unencrypted Wi-Fi. This is really just a proof of concept. Security is important, and privacy is important also, but this is just a proof of concept to show that it can work. But yeah, those things need to be considered and built into the technology stack. Cool, I'll leave it at that.
Can I add something, or I don't know, it's a question / request. I think that the kind of human potential for this is enormous, and telling those stories of how it could be used and very valuable to people seems to me crucial. I mean, this is so cool, and I guess maybe I'm volunteering myself too to help tell the story if you need help doing some design or kind of writing around it.
Yeah, so that's something that is interesting, but we haven't really focused on, is the specific use cases for this, and why like tethering and regular Wi-Fi just aren't suitable for the applications where mesh networking makes sense. So if you're interested, we should talk offline.
And especially with the MozFest session in mind, because we would like people to be really excited about those things when they start thinking about it in a session at MozFest. So please help us write some cool stuff about it.
For sure. That's a huge, awesome opportunity to demonstrate.
Especially with that crowd, yeah.
Yeah.
Wi-Fi just wasn't very well supported. So if I wanted to create an implementation for Firefox OS where we could use ad hoc Wi-Fi on all of our devices, it would be a very large scoped project, and I couldn't really do that. So I looked for the low-hanging fruit, and Wi-Fi Direct is capable. You can create a mesh network using it, supposedly, but I can imagine all sorts of problems that could actually happen there. Like, I imagine there would be conflicts. Anyways, so ad hoc Wi-Fi, probably the way to go if it can be done. But, actually, there is another issue. When you have ad hoc Wi-Fi enabled, it seems to be kind of this like all or nothing thing. Like, you're either on ad hoc Wi-Fi and can't connect to normal like Wi-Fi endpoints, or you're not, and you can't access ad hoc Wi-Fi, but you can access. So that was another problem. So if Wi-Fi Direct works and works well, it will be better, but I have my doubts about whether it will. Is that cool? Cool beans? Cool beans. All right. Thank you, guys.